Rockstar's Bully is probably one of the most important games I played growing up. It was almost perfect for me as a kid, actually going through the process of actually being excluded to a school and having to go into a new one with a bad name attached to me. Bully does a fantastic job on capitalising on the memories and bonds we have during the school period, the friends we make and the fights we overcome. I hope my experience with this game was the same as many others. I would love to show you what it was like with me growing up with Bully.
Do you ever shut up?
When I was in both primary and secondary school, I believed that I had an untouchable ability that actually allowed me to do anything I wanted to. Having ADHD as a kid was not great for me, I tell you that much. I wasn't a bully and I wasn't exactly a good kid. I never was a bully because I was seriously bullied by people, so I understand how that felt, but at every second I always wanted to be the class clown. At every moment I could, I would like to mess with a teacher, whether that be a sly comment to whatever subject they'll be teaching, or even sneaking into class and unplugging all the computers before IT. I was a pain in the butt to say the least, but I did these things to try and impress people or even try and make people laugh. When I got excluded from primary school, I felt like an outsider and I realised I really had no friends to turn to. The few painful months that I was actually off school after being excluded are probably some of the most traumatizing moments of my life. It's the reason I am how I am today. I was bullied during this period, I was left alone, I felt extremely isolated. So to say the least, fitting into a new school was tough for me because I had this serious trust issue with people, but by some sort of miracle, a new game had just released. Canis Canem Edit just came out and I was hooked from the moment, with both its gameplay but also its characters and story it was trying to tell. I generally saw and still do see a lot of myself within Jimmy growing up. I'm not a fighter like him and I'm not doing borderline bribery to every person that I meet, but he was the new kid that just wanted to get by, not get much attention and just sort of get on with his life. But instead, Jimmy at every moment felt like he became the centre of attention and had to handle and deal with his own problems, very much how I was treated and acted when I was excluded. At every junction and chapter in this game, Jimmy is constantly reminded that he isn't the tough kid that he believes to be. He isn't the strongest kid on the block because he's been excluded from a few schools. There are clearly bigger fish out there that wanted to prove him wrong and belittle him. And this is one thing that personally hit me. Constantly I was reminded by pupils and teachers growing up that I wasn't that tough because I was excluded from one school. And this really annoyed me because I really didn't want to have that name attached to me. I didn't want to be seen as the naughty kid who got excluded and was trying to prove something by being all tough. I was in trouble once, I acted stupidly, I got excluded, but that sort of seemed to haunt me throughout high school and even primary school. But it was Bully's fantastic world building and cast that allowed me to observe and take notes. In the game you're given choices to do favours for students and build bonds with them, build relationships with them, learn about the people they are and what they find interesting. Finding out about the AI even though they ask you for a few favours every now and then just to see them walking around the courtyard is really fun and it helps Bully's world feel genuinely really alive and even still to this date. I think most people can agree that there's a feeling of comfort whenever you jump back into Bullworth. It's a familiar setting from the football field to the library to the main school. You remember this layout like the back of your hand. From the mental hospital to the carnival or even the Greaserfield slums to the crashed ship. There's always this sense of adventure and mystery with this and it feels great to explore. It's almost like being a kid again, discovering new locations where you shouldn't actually be. And there is good reason why this game has a special place in thousands of people's hearts. It shows a side of growing up that really wasn't there before. Being told that it's okay to be the nerd or the jock, and it's okay to be that different person sometimes. It's not bad that you want to play sport to dedicate your life to building cars, or even playing a session of D&D. These people are all natural and they're all here and they are all acknowledged. Even the people that I went to school with are in this game, but overly exaggerated to comedic effect. Understanding what a person could be and could even be going through is fantastic. And the fact that Bully makes note of these characteristics through high school reminds us that it's okay to be a little bit different sometimes. Everybody in their life has met a Russell or a Peter, and even unfortunately a Gary every now and then, especially during the school eras. It's beating and befriending these stereotypes that make you feel a real sense of growing up whenever you play this game. Doing small tasks and getting rewards and cool gadgets or even just small throwaway lines will always be acknowledged within the story. The tasks that you do seem to matter here with the people and with the characters, and it adds a sense of a personal touch that a lot of people don't really talk about with Bully. A fantastic little touch which really helps the students elements of Bulworth feel alive is that they know about upcoming events that you probably won't understand until a few missions later. There's nice little touches that can foreshadow upcoming events if you're able to keep an ear out and just sort of play it close to the ground. You're able to hear people talk behind your back, very much how it was in high school. To be able to hear rumours be spreaded around and then see it played out makes Bulworth feel so alive, and it makes you feel like there's a real meaty story underneath.
Did you hear? The preps are planning to do something to Jimmy. I swear.
You've been rude about Mommy! Let's get this, Papa!
I think the great thing about Bully is that it tries to relate with everybody no matter the age. It doesn't distinctively give you a year that the game is set in, but it is strongly to believe to be set maybe late or early 90s. But this game has themes of the 70s and even the 80s. The soundtrack by Sean Lee is gone down as one of the most iconic soundtracks of all time. The use of 80s synth to glam rock to 70s funk to even 90s garage inspired tracks. It reaches audiences no matter the age and no matter the generation that they were in when they were going through these situations in high schools. It uses this for nostalgia, and I have a theory that they're using samples from past tracks and decades to even grab the attentions of people who may be older, or even maybe people who are still at a relevant age to play the game during school. I'm going to play you a few examples here to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Hearing an offbeat version of Eye of the Tiger gives it a sense of the 80s, or hearing Rapper's Delight's funk sort of coming takes it back to 1979, or even hearing something from Prodigy sort of makes you realise how relevant this game could be to people growing up in the 90s and even playing this game in the early 2000s. It's the genius of these soundtracks on how it does relate with our memories. Music does play a big vocal point within our memories, especially when going through high school. It's a time when we're most experimenting with music and experimenting with who we are, and that's another thing that is captured perfectly here in Bully. The use of different clicks being the vocal point of every chapter lets every type of person and personality really get a voice, which takes you back to that high school mindset. It's the mischievous nature of the soundtrack that gives the whole game a childish sensibility. But these feelings can really quickly turn into something quite sinister or even romantic. It's the soundtrack to literally growing up. It did just that. The game was released again in 2008, and I actually was able to play it a second time in secondary school, and it was just as effective on my life then as it was when I first played it on PlayStation 2. I've played this game probably at every major junction in my life, and it has affected me in some sort of different way, but I still find myself relating to it in very different and personal times. A subject that interestingly enough does get thrown around quite a bit when you speak of Jimmy Hopkins as a character himself is the fact that he may be gay or even openly bi and is down to kissing both genders no matter what. From the relationships you build with them, it isn't exactly a vocal point of the story at all. Though there are moments in the story when Jimmy is straight out called out for his sexuality or even called out for being transgender at one point in his life, he gets pretty defensive about this, and you can tell that there's probably something going on within his mind that he sort of is experimenting with, and this is something that is actually handled quite professionally in this game and like an adult. There isn't any bad message here towards the LGBT community at all. It's actually more of an acknowledgement, which I found quite interesting. Growing up through high school can be tough, and it can be a time where people are exploring their sexuality and even gender, and this is a big staple of myself even right now. This game has always reminded me that it's nice to be different and that these people exist, and I feel like that's a very important and positive message to even have in a game, and especially a Rockstar game which is known for their controversies. The fact that they're able to put something so mature into a game about high school is a real acknowledgement of the people who went through suffering about being confused of their sexuality or gender or whatever issues they may be facing. The fact they even acknowledged it is fantastic, and for people like me when going through high school, it was a fantastic reminder that I'm not alone out there in the world, and it is completely normal and it's fine to be you. The overall subjects that this game handles are key points to growing up that many people have faced, learning about who you will and want to become in the future, who the people you hang around with and change and influence the choices that you make in your life, whether or not they're mistakes or even for the greater good. But Jimmy teaches us it's okay to fail sometimes. Just in a year of staying in Bullworth, you see both students and teachers grow, become close and even further apart from Jimmy. From falling in love to even overcoming addiction, all these characters' stories can be related to anyone and with everyone. If you played this game when it first came out, I can imagine that you will still play it now to this day and believe that the world is still alive as much as it was back then, and even as relevant as it was back then, things haven't changed very much. You might find yourself growing up and you even find yourself relating to characters you thought you would never relate to before, but maybe you're still on your journey of growing up and maybe you're in high school right now, and if you are, I strongly recommend you give this game a go. Yeah, I know it looks outdated, but Bully really is something worth experiencing. It's worth to see these characters develop and grow, it's worth to see how to respect people no matter what they believe in, and it's also amazing just to experience this game alone, and plus if we ever get a sequel, that would be very nice. But for me, it's the fond memories of growing up. Going through high school is one of the most enduring moments of everybody's life, and it feels like probably the longest years of everybody's life, because the truth is, it's the beginning of everybody's life. We go through high school, we make memories, we make life-changing decisions which could be for the good or for the bad, and we learn about who we're going to become, and Bully really does focus on this. It focuses on Jimmy and his actions and what he wants to become and how he wants to change as a person, and I really love to see this story sort of even be exaggerated on if they ever do make a sequel. Whether or not you're in your 40s, your 30s, or even your early 20s, if you feel nostalgic and you feel like you want to go back to childhood memories, why not put Bully in and experience it just for good times and just experience school for at least one more year. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, as I said, I play Bully during special junctions of my life, and even right now doing all this YouTube stuff, living in my own place, it's quite an interesting time to play Bully and actually reflect on how I've grown since last playing it. It's a ton of fun to experience, and for me it hasn't aged a day because it's just full of charm. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe and why not leave a like, and hey, tell me your fond memories of high school or even your fond memories of playing Bully. Thank you so much for watching, and of course, I'll see you at the next checkpoint. Bye bye.